fan, or where did the idea for this documentary come from?
Yes, I am a fan of horror and gothic literature, and Lovecraft is one of those people. I had read The Moon Bog, and it had struck me when I read it that Lovecraft had a particular twist in his writing where he would take real places and he would give them a sort of a fantastical twist. So in some of his stories he talks about a town called Oldham, which is a real town in New England, but he changed the name to Arkham. And of course, anyone who's interested in fantastical literature knows that Arkham Asylum is where the Joker is kept. Yeah. And so this was particularly interesting to me when I read The Moon Bog, and I thought, oh, I think that's Kildare. And I think that all the things he's talking about in the story are real places in Ireland, and it's his only Irish story. So what I did was, that's how it came about. I started researching it, and we went on a location reconnaissance when we were planning the film, and we came to the conclusion, well, you know, the bog is the Bog of Allen, and the tower, he talks about a tower in the story, that's Aylmer's Folly, and the place in Tala where the Partholonians are, that's actually the Hellfire Club, which features in the film. So that's really where it came from, is this fascination between the real place that is buried within the mythological place, and then the film becomes an exploration of the mythological and the real, which is in film a lot more. Anyone who's gone up to Northern Ireland to see the Game of Thrones tour, that's the same thing. That's really what we're talking about. You have a real place, and over time culture intersects, or literature intersects, or cinema intersects, and it lays this veil over the real place, and the real place becomes not the place that you visit. You're visiting this imaginary place, and that's really what the film is kind of getting at. And Stoker did the same thing. People go to Transylvania now and they see the real Castle Dracula, but they're not thinking it's, oh, Vlad the Impaler, who's a real historical figure. They're thinking, no, Count Dracula and his marvellous cloak and his marvellous retinue of attendants.
Oh no, I'll definitely not look at the Bog of Allen or visit it and think the same way. I mean, you know, you just, again, it's kind of this idea of something that we take for granted, like an everyday, almost kind of, well, as one of the lecturer from Trinity says, you know, squelchy money. And then I'm kind of going, is there really a Greek civilization underneath this bog? It's amazing. So when you were doing the research, did you absolutely go down a rabbit hole? And how did you kind of go, right, well, this is the parts that I'm going to tell? Like, because I imagine there's an abundance of research that would have been done for this.
Yeah, so what I did in developing the film was I drew up a codex of references. So, I mean, I did it it sounds very banal to do it to an Excel spreadsheet, but it turned into something other than an Excel spreadsheet.
I'm a big fan of an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah, they're very sexy in filmmaking. But so what I did was, we needed to work out what the time signature is, because Lovecraft moves, as Professor Colleen talks about, they move between backwards and forwards through time. So the time signature in the original story, actually there are a number of different time signatures, and we didn't know what that time signature was, because Lovecraft manages to hide it. And what it actually is 72 hours in progression. And then what we did was we basically looked at all of the different places that he's talking about. We built up a codex of references, and then we realized what he's really saying in the story is, here's the Bog of Allen, and if you go down beneath the Bog of Allen, there is a mountain, and on top of the mountain is this city, but the city is 2,000 or 3,000 years old. And so when you go down between the bog, you move through time, but you also move through space. And once we had done that codex, and I actually started drawing out drawings and paintings of what I thought it looked like, then it became it didn't come very easy to work out what parts of the story we were going to do, because Colin, who's the producer, he drew up a short list of excerpts. But then we had a roadmap which we could work around, and that allowed us to then start thinking about who we needed to interview, because the hardest thing in this film was to find people. You can find people for a documentary who speak very well, but they don't say anything that's relevant.
Yeah.
And equally, you can find people who are brilliant, would have brilliant things to say, but they can't talk. And finding that nexus between they're good talkers, but they know what they're talking about, that was the hardest thing.
Oh, completely. And I feel like this could be absolutely a feature length. Was that a plan, or are you happy enough with how you have it there? I'm like, I was left anyway wanting to find out more about this. So
Yeah, I mean, it could have been much longer. I mean, we started getting into the Book of Invasions. We had a whole section that we were going to shoot at the Book of Invasions. We were going to go up to the RIA. We did a recce. We talked to the librarian there. There was all sorts of ways we could have gone, and it could have been much longer. But our editor, Connor Smith, is extremely ruthless with the material, and I have
an editor ruthless. Oh, geez.
yeah, and I'm very much somebody who likes working with editors who are ruthless with material, and I'm not someone who sits in with the editor. Okay. So I like the editor to really have their own voice in it, and we, as I said, we could have gone much longer, but we could have gone much baggier with the film, and we wanted it to be really razor sharp and just stay on that one thing of this, the mythical and the real in place. And as you say, you know, you pass the Bog of Allen. There's lots of places like that in Ireland, and you think, oh, that's just, you know, a field, that's just, and there's actually, if you stop and think and read about it and talk to people about it, you realise this, that really there's sort of sediments of history and archaeology and mythology and story, and that what you think is this really uneventful section of landscape is an amazingly fantastical place.
It really is, and congratulations, it's an absolutely fantastic documentary.
Thank you very much.
It's really, really good.